So today we'll talk about benign lesions of cervix. Okay, before going to the topic proper, we'll discuss about the normal anatomy of cervix. Okay, cervix, as you all know, it is a part of the uterus. Okay, so this is the cervix. Okay, the cervix consists of two parts, the endocervix and the ectocervix. Okay, now what is the lining epithelium? The lining epithelium of the endocervix is columnar cells. Okay, whereas the ectocervix is lined by non-keratinizing squamous epithelium. Okay, so this is very important. So this is how the normal cervix will look like. Okay, as you can see, there are no erosions. Now what is erosion? One more term, erosion. So this is how the normal cervix will look like. Okay, so now you know there are two terms. Okay, one is erosion and one is ulcer. Okay, you should be able to differentiate between both of them. Now another two terms you should know is the squamocolumnar junction and the transformation zone. Okay, now what is squamocolumnar junction? Squamocolumnar junction is the junction between the columnar cells and the squamous cells. Here you can see the tall glandular cells. These are the columnar cells of the endocervix. Okay, now these are the squamous cells of the ectocervix. They are arranged in multiple layers and they are non-keratinized. Okay, so this is the squamocolumnar junction. And one more thing you should know is the squamocolumnar junction is not a fixed area. It will not be fixed at this area only. Okay, it will vary according to the hormonal conditions and according to the age of the patient. Okay, so the junction or the zone between the new and old squamocolumnar junction is known as the transformation zone. This transformation zone is very important because most of the pre-malignant lesions will first occur in this area. Okay, so it is very essential to take the squamocolumnar junction or the transformation zone into the when we are taking a pap smear. Okay, so now see here, before the puberty the transformation zone will lie inside the endocervical canal. Okay, and after puberty also it will lie inside the endocervical canal, but in between it will be outside in the ectocervix. Okay, so what are the main indications? Main is repeated abnormal cervical cytology, that is repeated abnormal pap smear, number one. Second is positive and persistent high risk HPV DNA. Okay, and then if the cytology is normal but there is gross abnormality in the cervix, in perspicular examination we can see that the cervix is not normal but cytology is normal. Okay, and in case of postcoital bleeding or any unexplained vaginal bleeding we can do colposcopy. Okay, now how to do colposcopy examination? Now colpo, the word means vagina. Okay, colpo, the word means vagina. Okay, so now we'll position the patient in lithotomy. Okay, and then we'll introduce a bivalve speculum. Okay, and we'll focus the colposcope on the cervix. Okay, so what are the principles? First we should use the low power and then we should switch over to the high power. Okay, in low power we should see first the cervix, the vulva and the vagina, and similarly with high power we can focus the. So these are the colposcopic findings. Okay, as you can see, one new squamocolumnar junction will be there and one original squamocolumnar junction will be there. Okay, so the new one will be inside. Okay, always remember the new will be inside. Okay, and the original squamocolumnar junction will be outside, so it will be mnemonic is O for O. Okay, just remember O, original squamocolumnar junction will be outside in the ectocervix and new squamocolumnar junction will be inside. Okay, so the zone between the original and the new squamocolumnar junction is known as transformation zone. Okay, so what are the abnormal colposcopic findings? Abnormal colposcopic findings may be any leukoplakia is there, like any white epithelium will be there, any acito-white areas. Okay, any punctations, any mosaics. Okay, what are punctations? Punctations are nothing but dilated capillaries which appear on the surface as dots. Okay, And mosaics are capillaries encircling polygonal shaped blocks of epithelial cells. Okay, and there can be abnormal blood vessels, there can be irregular surface contour, all these things can be there. Okay. Now the two terms, okay, coming back to the two terms, okay, erosion and ulcer. Ulcer, what is ulcer? Ulcer is nothing but breach in the continuity of the lining epithelium. Okay, so if there is any breach in the continuity of the lining epithelium, it is known as ulcer. Okay, whereas erosion means when an ulcer is replaced, when any epithelium is replaced by another epithelium. Okay, suppose there will be some lesion in the cervix, ectocervix. Okay, so squamous epithelium will be there and there is some ulcer, that is a breach in continuity is there, and this ulcer has been formed by replacement by the columnar cells, and it will look like erosion. Okay, so erosion is nothing but replacement of one type of epithelium by another type of epithelium in order to heal the breach in the continuity. Okay, erosion is nothing but an healed ulcer. Okay, when ulcer is healed by replacement of a different type of epithelium, it is known as erosion. Okay, so we'll see about the benign cervical lesions. Okay, what are benign cervical lesions? These are non-cancerous cervical tumors that do not metastasize. Okay, so it would exclude all the pre-malignant lesions. Okay, so what are the pre-malignant lesions of cervix? Like CIN. Okay, what is CIN? Cervical intraepithelial neoplasia. I hope you have heard about it. Okay, so are non-cancerous cervical tumors that do not metastasize or invade the surrounding tissues. Okay, and these are not life-threatening conditions also. So what does benign lesions of cervix include? It includes cervical polyp, cervical ectopy, cervical ectopion, cervical fibroids, cervical stenosis, and Nabothean follicles. Okay, so cervical fibroid will not discuss here because fibroids is a in total different chapter. Okay, so cervical ectopy and cervical ectopion both are two different terms. Okay, don't confuse. Okay, benign lesions of cervix will include polyps, ectopy, ectopion, stenosis, Nabothean follicles. Okay, so first we'll see about cervical polyp. Okay, so it will look like this. Small cysts will be protruding outside. Okay, and these are benign tumors arising from the endocervical epithelium and may be seen as a smooth reddish protrusion in the cervix. Okay, it never arises from the ectocervix, always arises from the endocervix. Okay, so in these conditions polyp will occur. Okay, increased estrogen, chronic inflammation, and clogged blood vessels. Okay, mainly these two reasons are very important. So polyps can be ectocervical or endocervical, but as I told you, it always arises from the endocervix and never from the ectocervix. So this is very rare. Okay, ectocervical this thing is very rare. Then what are the signs and symptoms? Generally it will be asymptomatic. Okay, so it is usually diagnosed when the patient is coming to OPD with some complaint of vaginal discharge and we are doing some perspiculum examination. So during routine examinations it might be diagnosed. Okay, so polyps, how polyps are removed? It is easily, it can be removed in the OPD itself if it is cervical polyp. Okay, so this the polyp is held with the help of a sponge holding forceps. It is twisted. Okay, so and then it is avulsed from its origin. Okay, so this is how we remove the polyp. So if it is a very small polyp, then it need not need removal. Okay, only antibiotics will be enough because as we know that polyps are due to chronic infection. Okay, so we should give antibiotic, and if it is a very small, very big polyp, we can do polypectomy. If it is a very small polyp, we can ignore it. Okay, unless it is symptomatic. So now see, it is very common in postmenopausal women. Very rarely there will be cancerous cells in the polyps. Okay. So now cervical ectopion. So here it is wrong. Cervical ectopion and cervical erosions, both are two different terms, okay? So this is how the normal cervix will look like, and this is how ectopy will look like, okay? So cervical ectopy is a condition, okay? It is a condition where the squamous epithelium of the ectocervix is replaced by columnar epithelium of the endocervix, okay? So what happens? There is a squamo-columnar junction, as you all know, okay? Squamo-columnar junction in the cervix, okay? So what happens in ectopy is the squamous epithelium of the ectocervix is replaced by the columnar epithelium of the endocervix, okay? This is what is known as ectopy, okay? In perspiculum examination, it will appear like this. See this? There's a bright red area. There's a bright red area around the os, okay? So cervical erosions will also look like this, okay? So it can be congenital or it can be acquired. Congenital when there is presence of estrogen in the child. So as you all know, estrogen will be present in a newborn female for up to 10 days, okay? Because of placental transfer of estrogen, okay? After 10 days, the amount will reduce, the estrogen slowly reduce, okay? So it can be congenital, it can be acquired, okay? Acquired mainly due to OCPs, okay? It can be due to OCPs or due to pregnancy, okay? These are the two reasons. And previously it was believed that whenever ectopy is there, it is due to infection. But nowadays it is a new this thing that ectopy need not be due to infection. But however, if the infection is chronic, it can lead to ectopy, okay? So what are the complaints patient will present with? Patient will come with complaints of excessive mucoid vaginal discharge, intermenstrual discharge, slight postcoital bleeding may be there. During pregnancy, patient might complain that she is having vaginal discharge or a minimal amount of vaginal bleeding, okay? So how do you diagnose? Main diagnosis is by perspiculum examination, okay? Okay, apart from perspiculum examination, we can do colposcopy. In colposcopy also we can diagnose, okay? Now what is the management? If there is no symptom, no management is done. It is ectopy, okay? So management will again divide into two groups, okay? Symptomatic and asymptomatic, okay? If asymptomatic, no treatment is required, no active intervention is required, okay? If it is symptomatic, then we should treat, okay? So as you all know, there are among the acquired causes, there are 3 causes, okay? One is chronic infection, one is due to pregnancy, and third is due to pills, okay? So what we'll do if there is chronic infection, okay? Suppose patient is complaining of foul smelling vaginal discharge for a very long time. So then no treatment is required, no active intervention is required until 12 weeks post delivery, okay? If the patient is taking pills, we can advise her to stop the pills and switch to another method of contraception like barrier methods, okay? So what is important is we'll give antibiotics first. If it is pregnancy, we'll avoid any active intervention till 12 weeks, and if they're using pills, we can ask them to switch to other methods of contraception, okay? After doing all this, if there is persistence, okay, if there is persistence, then what we can do is we can do thermal cauterization, we can do laser ablation, or we can do cryotherapy, okay? Cauterization, cryotherapy, and laser ablation, okay? So what is cervical stenosis? Cervical stenosis, as the term stenosis tells, it refers to pathological narrowing of the endocervical canal, and it is due to an iatrogenic complication, okay? So repeat any surgical event, treatment of pre-malignant diseases of cervix using cone biopsy or diathermy, all these things will lead to cervical stenosis. Okay. So what will be the symptoms? Symptoms will be dysmenorrhea, chronic pelvic pain, irregular menstrual cycle. All this why? Because the menstrual blood cannot fully come out. Okay. So after menopause, cervical stenosis may be present but might not cause symptoms. Okay. So it can, because it leads to pent up secretions of blood into the uterus, and lead to hematometra, pyometra, and infertility it might cause, because the sperms will not be able to enter the cervix. Okay. So diagnosis is mainly by signs and symptoms only, and will while taking the endocervical swab of pap smear, we might not be able to enter the endocervix. Okay. So we can confirm the diagnosis whenever suspicion is there. We can confirm the diagnosis by inserting a probe through the cervix into the uterus. Okay. So what is the treatment? Treatment is dilatation. Okay. So using dilators, we can dilate the cervix. And whenever cervical stenosis is there, we should always rule out any pre-malignant and malignant conditions. Okay. So we should always send a sample cervical biopsy for histopathology. Okay. So coming to Nabothian cysts. Okay. So it will look like this. Not exactly, it is looking like, this picture is not exact. So the Nabothian cyst, it will look normally like this. Okay. So why does Nabothian cyst occur? It occurs because the endocervical glands will be there. If the ducts of the endocervical glands are obstructed by some squamous epithelium, then it will cause Nabothian cyst. And as a result, what will happen is retention of the secretions. Okay. So it is normally associated with ectopy. Okay. And ectopy is associated with infections, chronic infection. Okay. So mostly Nabothian cysts will be associated with infections. Okay. So if there is an Nabothian cyst, the treatment is generally antibiotic. Okay, conservative. Okay. However, if the Nabothian cyst is persistent and it is not responding to treatment, and if it is very big in size, all the three criteria should be there. Very big in size, persistent, and too many in number, and not responding to medical therapy, then we can do excision. Okay, we can do electrocautery, we can do cryotherapy. Okay.